and I am going to go over tonight's gigantic 14-game Major League Baseball DFS slate. It's a huge slate. On one hand, if you're like a no ball type, it's a tough slate because you got a lot of games to analyze. If you're, my type of player who kind of trusts the process and use these simulations, it's not much different than any other, right? We're just going to kind of run it and see what we get. Remember, before I get started, really helps us out if you like and subscribe. So, please do like and subscribe. Check out TrueDFS.com. It's a little bit muddied on the site, but we've got a new website coming. And check out the packages we offer, because you're going to get access to all the sims that I'm running for like $25 more than you'd pay at SaberSim. But you also get the pay dirt analytics with great tools for DFS and betting. You get Sheets' projections and Goldie's projections and premium Discord. So there's a lot on offer that you should check out. But with that, we should really just get into it and run our process. I'm gonna just to add like a little color, I'll run it with SaberSim's projections, and then I'll run it with Goldie's projections that are out now, and just see what kind of differences it makes. Usually it makes a pretty big difference. What's up, K-Town? And this, how do you feel about DK Freeland? Milwaukee's not as good with lefties. Thoughts? I don't know. We're gonna find out. We're gonna find out, K-Town. We'll see if we get to Freeland, and the price is certainly right. But there's a lot of guys on this slate, right? I mean, Will Warren is projecting the best. You've got Gilbert at a high price. Cease is okay, but he's in Cincinnati. Cease can give up power sometimes. And Pepio's solid. Sonny Gray's okay, but the price is insane. Then there's just a lot of like bunched up kind of names here. So no one really stands out. Maybe it is the cheapos like Freeland that come up. We're gonna find out. Let's run it now just using SaberSim's projections. I'm gonna make some changes here. I don't want any of these small stacks to show up in my 5,000 lineups. There's no way I'm playing anything less than 5 2s and 5 3s on a 14-game slate. So I'm just gonna X them out before I build. The thinking is like, if I get those lineups, I'm gonna X them out after. So why grade them? Why get an ROI grade on them if I'm not going to play them? So let's just build and see what happens using SaberSims, and we'll see what happens using Goldies. I appreciate you, K-Town. Thanks for stopping by. Carrington Legrand, on a slate this big, do you ever late swap? Understanding the people on any slate, I late swap. Carrington, I mean, I think there's really no reason not to, especially with the tools that we have at our disposal. So like in the past, you didn't get live ownership and you didn't get live projections. So late swapping was harder. You could still do it, especially if you're playing a lot of lineups, it was harder. But now, like, we know how each lineup is doing, and we know what the ownership of every contest is and what the ownership of our lineups are using a tool like SaberSim that we're using here. And so given that we have more information later, we should always late swap. We can always make the lineups better. In one way, like if the lineup's doing bad, we can make it better by getting off anything that was going to be higher owned. And if the lineup's performing worse or performing well, we can switch to higher projected, places. Now, this is not the easiest slate for late swapping. There's 14 games, but ironically, there's not a lot of late ones. But there's enough of a window here. I mean, you've got 6:15 Central to 6:40. You could certainly late swap here because you're going to get a little bit more information. You're not going to get a ton of information from these early games, but you're going to get some. And the same is true for the 7:05 and then these two late games. So I see no reason to not late swap. The questions of late swap are like, how do you keep your stack integrity? Do you still want 5-mans? I think the answer is as the slate gets smaller, you don't want to do that. But like if you're swapping from 610 to 640 and there's still 6 games left, then maybe do you still demand 5 mans? That's a kind of a question. But when there's 2 games left, I think the answer is you certainly don't make any demands of it. But I don't know. I don't know exactly what you do. But you do late swap, Carrington. Okay, so we've got our lineups built using SaberSim's projections. Now, SaberSim has a new portfolio manager coming out. It's in beta. I'm not going to show that right now. Sheets showed it the last few days, so definitely check that out. And we did some comparisons between where we'd get. So let's see, in 150 lineups, let's see what our exposures look like. I'm pitching all that Will Warren, then some Cease and Gilbert. So we're getting the high projected pitchers. I mean, they're the highest projected pitchers, but none of these guys are that exciting. I mean, how exciting is Will Warren? I don't have a lot of no ball takes usually. I will say Will Warren trended down in his last start. He performed okay against Baltimore. I think he was like 6 1/3 innings, 2 earned runs. So that's going to look okay. But if you look at his stuff plus and his location, had a really significant dip from some of those great starts he had, right? A 96 stuff plus is below average. Now, I don't know how he did against Boston and the Dodgers here with the 95 and 99, but he certainly did great against the Angels, and he performed well at Kansas City. But his stuff was way better for whatever reason. I mean, real 121 stuff plus and a 113 location plus is really good. Really good. And he just didn't have that in his last start. Now, he did okay, but maybe there's some leading indicators here on Warren. So we'll see. I'm not going to impose that much based on that qualitative take, but it's something to look out for with him. So let's see in our 5-mans. We've got all the Washington and Miami. 2 teams really standing out, huh? Washington and Miami taking up 70% of our exposures if we use SaberSim. I'm again, like, if this were right before the slate, I would want to probably balance that. I would use some uniques to balance this a little. That would change the pitching exposures a bit. Definitely takes us down in the Miami, not much on the Washington. But, you know, right now, just in the early going, people ask, who do you like? Here's where I'd be getting. Let's see if we get any of that Freeland K-Town. Whoop, I keep thinking my exposures the end, and I have them so they come up right here, so it's a little easier. And then well, we've got 1 Freeland in 150 lineups, K-Town. So I don't have an answer as far as the, you know, the lefty concentration in Milwaukee or how much trouble they have hitting lefties. Freeland obviously gets like a little boost outside of Coors, and, you know, he's a crafty lefty. He's got some tricks, but if I'm running SaberSim's projections, it's not a Freeland kind of day. That's for damn sure. Let's see, using Goldie's projections, where did I get on DK? I'm going to do that with his projections and his ownership projections. And then we'll run FanDuel. Then we'll get out of here. You know, pretty impressive, right? For a 14-game slate that we get out of here that quick, but why not? We're just running the process like we do any other day. And you know, that feels comfortable for me on a slate like this to try and parse through 14 games with these kind of takes is not easy. It is not easy to do. Even if you know a lot, there's going to be some good content today, some long content as shows go through every game. I wish I knew enough to go through every game, but you don't just have to know ball. You have to know the ball that's relevant to DFS, right? So, you know, this Will Warren thing, because projection systems are not too short-term focused, I think the BAT takes into account some of these advanced metrics and these new stuff plus rankings, but I don't think they all do. And since things like SaberSim are long-term focused, maybe that's like the right kind of no ball, as opposed to just thinking, well, Milwaukee doesn't hit lefties well, or who knows? Who knows though? But I like the thinking, K-Town. So okay, we've got lineups built. We're running the Sims. Let's switch it to 150 using Goldie's projections. I have a feeling this is going to change where we get to quite a bit. Yeah, we're really spread out at pitching, but we got Logan Gilbert and Sonny Gray as the highest. Will Warren only coming up 13% if we use Goldie's stuff. I'm inclined to use Goldie's. I love SaberSim. That's no knock on using their out-of-the-box projections, but, a decent amount of the field is using them, and you're going to bunch up with them in using that. So Goldie's gets you different. There's far fewer people that are going to use Goldie's projections. We'll get Sheets' projections in here later, so you can kind of choose from both of those. Now we're more spread out. I mean, I like that. This feels more comfortable to me to not be 30% on either team or have to use uniques. I mean, here we're just got some Cubs. You can't go wrong with the Cubs. Their total's not great today, but we know they hit home runs. It's a good offense. I'll take it at 16%. 16% on the Phillies. Now, I forgot to look at weather. There was like a little weather in Atlanta. There's all these yellows. Make of this what you will. On most slates, I wouldn't worry too much about the yellows, but I'd monitor it. On a 14-game slate, like if there's one or two that are just kind of yellowish in Ross report, you might X them out because there's so many games. You might say, well, Philly has some sort of chance of failing. Or you might say only in stacks, only because there's 28 teams to choose from. But I'm not going to change much this early. Just like the projections are going to change and sharpen up and ownership's going to sharpen up, we'll get more info on weather, and that's going to be sharper. Then we got San Francisco, KC. San Francisco's got a pretty good total. Royals, who are they? Where are the Royals today? They're on the road, right? Yeah. Oh, no, they're at home against the Dodgers. Okay. Dodgers, you could hit their starters, but they use the bullpen more than anyone, and they've got quite the bullpen. And then not that their starters are bad, but okay. So there you have it. There's where I'm getting to. Let's see if we used Goldie's, what kind of Freeland we get to, K-Town. Freeland, still 4. Okay. We have 4 times as much Freeland using Goldie's projections, 4 instead of 1. But there's your answer. We're definitely going for the higher projected pitchers on this slate. That seems to be the best option. Now, to the extent that SaberSim knows that Milwaukee doesn't hit lefties well, or there may be trends that benefit Freeland, that's something for you to think about, K-Town, and if you're adding value with that kind of take. But I don't know. I'm inclined to just trust the process day in and day out, and that's what I'm going to do. Let's go over to FanDuel and run 150 using SaberSims and using Goldie's. And we'll do the same thing with stacks. I don't want any of this junk. Fours with 4 one-offs, no thanks. 4-2, maybe. Yeah, okay. 4-2-2, 4-3, 4-4, yes. That's all we got to do. Guys, remember, like and subscribe. It really helps us out. Just give the plug while we're building here. We appreciate that. And check out TrueDFS.com. Website is going to be much improved. What doesn't need improvement, we could always use improvement, but are the great projections, Goldie's projections, Sheets' projections. You get them with the packages. You get SaberSim. You get the pay dirt analytics tools that we've been using for DFS and betting, the premium Discord, and we've been putting it all in there. You get access to like so many experts, Bobby Fi, Rody, Sheets. It's really a lot, and it's like $25 more than just a SaberSim Ultimate package. So like the price is right, makes a lot of sense. There's my plug, right? I definitely recommend checking it out. You know, if we wanted to do long form content, we'd go through game by game. We'd look at the weather. We'd look at these like fan graphs things, try and figure out if there's any leading indicators or qualitative takes, no ball stuff we could get, but I just don't play that way. So I don't know how many times I need to say it, but let's get it going here. We're going to run, you know, we could do one of these days run for like single entry stuff. So a lot of you guys are playing that, but I'm just running for the flagship. Most viewers are playing the flagship, at least we find. So here I'm running for the FanDuel flagship, the 150 max, 7,800 people, $15. What do you got? 20K up top? Not bad. I like that FanDuel is going to the $15 as opposed to like the $4 craziness or the $9. Now DraftKings has done a little bit of that. I remember what they have today. Okay, let's see if we got 5,000 lineups. We do. We've got simulations running of the flagship. See what it looks like. Well, if we use SaberScore, we're back to the Will Warren thing. I imagine we're going to get him running the contest sims, but we'll see. One pitcher site, I don't know. I don't know if you need Warren. He's priced up, kind of. Yeah, no, I guess not compared to Cease Gilbert. I mean, he projects better than Cease Gilbert and Sonny Gray and Pepio, and he's priced cheaper. So using SaberSim stuff, yeah, we still get half for the Will Warren. See what our four-mans look like. A little bit better spread. You got the San Francisco, back to the Miami, the Chicago, the Philly. You know, there's some question if you're playing DraftKings and FanDuel, do you want to be 19, 20% Miami on FanDuel and 35% on DraftKings? You know, SaberSim knows you're playing a portfolio of lineups on FanDuel. In this case, 150. I say this all the time. And it knows you're playing 150 on DraftKings. What it doesn't know necessarily is that you're playing DraftKings and FanDuel. So your portfolio is actually different. The amount of exposure you have has to matter across both sites. As is the amount you can win based on that, and the min cash rates and all these things. So, you know, that's a tough thing to do. But you know, and better people can do it. The Shady Advices of the world, the Whistles, the guys that have, you know, expert knowledge of portfolio management and thinking about these kind of things, and they have their own process and offline tools that they've built, systems. I don't have that kind of knowledge, right? I can eyeball it. I can say, look, I played 35% Miami. I'm just going to take 10 here and stay down to under 10 on the Washington. You know, could do that sort of thing. But there you have where I'd be on FanDuel if I was just playing that. Let that ambulance go. And a lot of the Will Warren. I don't know that I'm comfortable playing that much. That might be something I take down too. Okay, should we run using Goldie's stuff? Then we'll get out of here. Rebuild. Using Goldie's projections, this should change up how things look. Oh, that's interesting. With the different fantasy point scoring, you actually get Logan Gilbert as the highest projected starter on FanDuel, slightly above Warren, whereas Warren was more in DK. Is that like, yeah, I guess it's the quality start, I imagine, right? I mean, the win odds are higher for the Yankees. Maybe it's like a pitch count thing or how many innings he's expected to pitch. Yeah, just maybe a little higher pitch count, and he definitely doesn't have the win odds of Will Warren, but he's got much higher chance of the quality start. So that's interesting. That's really interesting. I mean, it's not going to affect us too much, but we'll see. This is also Goldie stuff. So maybe in Saber Sims, Gilbert still is below. Let's see. No, Gilbert's higher in Saber Sim by 1/10 of a fantasy point. Yeah. And it's the quality start that's doing it. Definitely not the win chance, but the win is a little more important on FanDuel with their fantasy points. Okay, we have 5,000 lineups built using Goldie's projections. Let's see what our 150 set would look like when we run the contest simulations of the flagship. Look at how spread out we are at pitcher using Saber Score. I don't know what that means for the Sims, but we'll find out. Stacks. Pretty spread out too using Saber Score. That's always a good thing. What does that say? No real chalk today, which makes sense on a 14-game slate. Whoop. Sorted wrong. Sort by ROI here. Okay, still all the Will Warren. Well, Will Warren's our highest owned pitcher on FanDuel using Goldie's projections, but it's less than half as much as we were getting using SaberSim stuff. We're way more spread out using Goldie's projections. Just like on DraftKings, I'm much happier with that. Much happier with that. Cubs, San Fran, still our highest owned. I don't want 28% and 20% of them, especially when I had that much on DK. So I'm going to demand some min uniques here. Still getting a lot of Cubs. Let's take this down. Right? I don't want to impose too much on it. If the Cubs are that good of a play, we'll keep it. Let's just even it out a little. Our min ROI is still positive significantly, right? You don't want to go to 10% with the variance in ROI, but 60%, we could live with that. So that's what I got. Will Warren. I don't know. My no ball instincts are not strong, but they do say that there's some negative stuff. I don't mean stuff figuratively. I mean, Will Warren's stuff took a dip in his last start. But using the projections, we get a lot of Will Warren. I'm going to keep that for now. I would probably keep that going into the slate. I might adjust it a little. For stacks, we've got the Cubs on DraftKings and FanDuel looking pretty good using Goldie's projections, some San Francisco, some Miami, whether we use Goldie's or SaberSim's projections. And we had some Philly on DK. So there you have it. You asked what I like. No personal preferences, but just using the numbers and crunching them, you've got it right there. So remember to like and subscribe. Check out TrueDFS.com. We think we've got like some of the most unique offerings and a really like robust offering that you could get through our site. Check it out. And I bid you adieu and wish you good luck on today's slate. Let's go.